already know. One day, you will die.
You already know you're going to die. You've known it since you were a child. Someone told you, and something clicked, and you nodded, and you moved on. But here's the thing. Your brain never actually believed it. Not really. Not in the way it believes you're hungry right now, or that your feet are touching the floor, or that the sky outside is a particular shade of gray. Those things feel real. Your death doesn't. And that gap between what you know and what your brain is willing to accept might be the most consequential illusion in all of human history. It shapes the way you drive, the way you eat, the way you fall in love, the way you go to war, the way entire civilizations have been built and destroyed. And neuroscientists, psychologists, and evolutionary biologists are only now beginning to understand exactly why your brain does this and what it costs you. Your brain is a prediction machine. That is its primary job. It takes in information about the world, compares it to everything it has ever learned, and generates a model of what comes next. It does this constantly, automatically, without your permission. And that model, that running simulation of your future, has a flaw built into its architecture. A flaw that isn't a mistake, a flaw that was engineered. In 2019, a team of researchers at Bar-Ilan University in Israel ran an experiment that stopped a lot of people cold. Led by cognitive neuroscientist Yair Dor Ziedeman, the study placed participants inside a brain scanner and showed them a stream of faces and words. Most of the time, the words were neutral, but occasionally, the word death appeared. And critically, it appeared paired directly with the participant's own face, their own name, their own reflection. What happened next was not what you'd expect. The brain did something remarkable. It rejected the pairing. When the word death appeared alongside a stranger's face, the brain updated its predictions normally. It learned the association. It accepted it. But when death appeared beside the participant's own face, the brain's predictive system shut it down. It treated the association as an error, a glitch in the signal, something that could not, by definition, be true. Your brain will let death belong to anyone but you. Dor Ziedeman called this the mortality shield. It is not denial in the colloquial sense, not the deliberate choice to look away from something uncomfortable. It is deeper than that. It is a structural feature of the way your brain processes self-referential information. Your brain applies a different set of rules to facts about you. Facts about others are catalogued and stored. Facts that threaten your continued existence are flagged, prioritized, and quietly archived. In a folder, your conscious mind almost never opens. You might wonder how this is even possible. You've been to funerals, you've seen death up close, you know the math. And yes, your prefrontal cortex, the slow, deliberate part of your brain that handles rational analysis, knows the math. But knowing and feeling are processed through different systems. And the feeling system, the ancient subcortical machinery that runs most of your moment-to-moment behavior, never got the memo. Evolutionary psychologists have a theory about why. Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pischinsky spent decades developing what they called terror management theory. The core insight is deceptively simple. Humans, unlike any other animal, became cognitively advanced enough to understand that they would die. This awareness arrived like a short circuit in an otherwise functional machine, an animal that truly, viscerally believed in its own inevitable annihilation, would be paralyzed. It could not hunt, could not mate, could not build or cooperate or plan. The terror would be too total. So the brain built a shield. It built the shield not through conscious choice, but through evolutionary pressure. The individuals whose brains softened that existential terror, who could function in the world without being consumed by the knowledge of their own death, were more likely to survive, to reproduce, to pass their neural architecture forward. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that architecture became standard equipment. You are, in a very literal sense, descended from the people who were best at not thinking about dying. But the shield has a cost, because the same mechanism that protects you from paralysis also distorts your perception of risk. Your brain systematically underestimates the probability that bad things will happen to you specifically, even when you know the statistics perfectly well. Psychologist Neil Weinstein at Rutgers University studied this in the 1980s and named it unrealistic optimism. He asked people to estimate their personal risk of various negative life events: cancer, divorce, accidents, job loss, and compare that estimate to what they believed the average person's risk was. The pattern was consistent across cultures, across ages, across levels of education. People knew the statistics. They could quote them back to you accurately, and then they quietly exempted themselves from those statistics. The average person, they believed, was more vulnerable, more mortal, more likely to be the one the numbers were talking about. Not them. Not quite. This is not stupidity. It is not ignorance. It is the mortality shield doing exactly what it was built to do. And when you understand that, you start to see its fingerprints everywhere. You see it in the person who lights a cigarette and says, "Everything kills you these days." You see it in the driver who glances at their phone at 70 miles per hour and arrives safely and takes that as evidence that it's fine. You see it in the way people delay medical checkups, skip sunscreen, eat the thing the doctor told them not to eat. None of them believe they are being reckless. Their brains have simply calculated, automatically, invisibly, that the worst outcome is one that will happen to someone else. But the mortality shield doesn't just suppress fear. It does something far more interesting. It redirects the energy that terror would have consumed and channels it into something else. This is the part that changes how you see everything. Terror management theory predicts, and hundreds of experiments have confirmed, that when your awareness of death is briefly activated, something shifts in your psychology. You don't become afraid, you become defensive. You cling more tightly to the worldview you already hold. You judge people who are different from you more harshly. You become more nationalistic, more tribal, more eager to attach yourself to something that feels bigger than one fragile human lifetime. A cause, a religion, a legacy, a family name, a piece of land. In one famous study, judges who were subliminally reminded of their own mortality handed down significantly harsher sentences to defendants who violated their moral standards. Their mortality awareness didn't make them kinder or more reflective. It made them more punitive, more certain, more rigid in the architecture of their beliefs. Your brain is not just hiding your death from you. It is using the knowledge of your death, held just below the threshold of conscious awareness, to organize your entire value system. Think about what you want to be remembered for. Think about the things you insist on, the principles you won't compromise, the groups you belong to, and the groups you distrust. Terror management theory suggests that many of those commitments, the ones that feel most essential and most non-negotiable, are downstream of this one enormous fact your brain refuses to fully feel. We built pyramids because of this. We launched crusades because of this. We planted flags on mountains and carved names into stone and wrote books we hoped might outlast us, because something deep in the architecture of the human mind could not reconcile itself to the idea of simply stopping. The mortality shield pushed that knowledge underground, and the pressure found other exits. Psychologist Ernest Becker, who won the Pulitzer Prize in 1974 for his book The Denial of Death, argued that virtually all of human civilization is a response to this suppressed terror. The cities, the religions, the art, the wars, the structures we build to outlast our bodies. He called it the Immortality Project, the unconscious attempt to matter beyond the span of a single life. He wasn't being poetic. He was describing a mechanism. And now consider this. You are living inside that mechanism right now. Every time you think about the future, your future, not a statistical abstraction, your brain is running its simulation with the mortality shield quietly engaged. You are planning as though you have more time than you might. You are delaying things you perhaps should not delay. You are spending energy on things that, from some final vantage point, might look very different than they look today. The shield protects you. It lets you get out of bed. It lets you book a flight and drive on a motorway and shake hands with strangers during cold season and generally function in a world that contains infinite opportunities to be ended. Without it, conscious life might not be livable, but it also narrows the window through which you see your own life. Because here is the counterintuitive truth. The research does not suggest that people who think about death more are paralyzed or depressed. In a series of studies by psychologists Laura King and Joshua Hicks, people who had confronted serious illness, who had been forced past the mortality shield by circumstances the shield couldn't deflect, reported something unexpected on the other side of that confrontation: clarity. A reorganization of priorities so thorough and so sudden that it felt, to many of them, less like loss and more like finally seeing the room with the lights on. The things they had been putting off felt urgent. The things they had treated as urgent felt hollow. The people they loved moved closer. The performances they had been giving for others fell away. Your brain refuses to believe you'll ever die. And it does that to keep you moving, to keep you building, to keep you connected to the herds and the tribes and the systems that protect you. But every once in a while, when something slips through the shield, when the knowledge lands for just a moment at the level of feeling rather than fact, something else becomes possible. A kind of life that isn't organized around the suppression of a truth, but around the truth itself. Tonight, you'll probably go to sleep without thinking about this. Your brain will take over, run its familiar routines, file the thought away. That is what it was built to do. But somewhere underneath all of that, the knowledge is still there, waiting, older than language, heavier than anything you carry consciously. And maybe, just maybe, the strangest thing your brain has ever hidden from you is also the thing that, once seen clearly, makes everything else make sense. You already know you're going to die. Your brain just never let you feel it. And the distance between those two things is where your entire life has been lived.
You already know. One day, you will die.